Finally, R0B and PTA have come back to Giants Talk. And in today's episode, we've got a nice little, we got a nice, little guest here. My man Alex, half of the Twins. We got one half of the New Yorks. We got the Giants version. We ain't got the gangrene Jets. We got the better version. Okay. And the man that was probably a part of one of the funniest clips I've ever seen when Odell Beckham was in the building a few years ago, and it was one of the greatest clips and funniest clips ever by one of their podcast buddies. It was great. But we're going to dive in. We're going to talk off-season. We're going to talk moves. We're going to talk all of that stuff. So I'm excited to do that. So grab your popcorn, grab your beer, your water. I've got me some hot cup of Java right over here, to keep my throat nice and nice and lubricated. Pause for the event. Okay. Grab your vitamin, say your prayers, because Alex and R0B are going to be taking over the YouTube streets. If you smell what R0B, PTA, oh no, it's this way, and my man Alex is cooking. Alex, what's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm good. I've been busy as hell the last few days and really over the last few weeks. Obviously, great to come on and talk about free agency. Can't wait to get into the deep dive. It seems like I've been going on more other people's channels and doing content on my own, but obviously there's time for all that stuff. And before we get into it, there's been something I've been asked on Twitter, is something about an Australian accent. What is the context of that?
Well, leave it. I saw the comment, and I got to tell you, mate, I really don't know what my friend Sal over there is talking about. I don't speak Australian there, mate. Don't do it, Just a regular guy here trying to talk about the New York Football Giants, trying to talk about the off-season. We got Javon Holland, brought in Paulson Adebo. I'm really excited. Brought in Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. Really excited here, mate, just to see, exactly what could potentially be the 2025 New York Giants. And did they get Shedeur Sanders? I'm really excited, to see if it's Shedeur Sanders, if it's Travis Hunter. What's it going to be there, mate? So I don't know what Sal, who's not a content creator, is talking about. He needs to worry about whatever's going on between him and Monty right now. They got a feud going on. It seems like everybody's breaking up. Everybody's splitting up here. We got Bobby and Justin splitting up. Now, he's a Giant splitting up. I don't know what's going on here, mate. Don't know what he's talking about. Don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, that was okay. All right. Well, you nailed it. Looks like you could be the next guy to do an ad for Outback Steakhouse, but
or Crocodile Dundee,
Crocodile Dundee. That's
something along those lines. Something along those lines. But yeah, man, I wanted to, to get on and talk some Giants ball. And there's a lot going on, right? So obviously the season, didn't go as well. I mean, it went as I knew it would go.
You said
I did, right? I said that we would go 3-14, right, when the season started. I actually think I was on your show, before the season started, and I think you had like a pre-show, I think, if not, before the season started. I think I said you had 3 wins, or something like that. And so it didn't go, obviously, as good. We all know about, Hard Knocks, and, we're going to, we're getting the weapon and we're rolling with Daniel. So now fast forward to the offseason. I think the majority of us in the Twitter spaces and the chats, obviously some of which you're a part of, we thought that Joe Shane, we thought these guys were going to get fired. Like, a lot of people thought they get fired. I didn't think that they were going to get fired. Well, I wanted them to get fired. I believe that they should have gotten fired, but I didn't want to believe that they would until it actually happened. And lo and behold, it drug out. We saw all these guys getting fired or statements coming out from teams that they were retaining these guys or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes out the Giants are retaining Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. What was your initial thoughts when you heard that news, given the way the season ended?
Yeah, what's up to Jacob in the chat, by the way? I wasn't very happy. I was not very happy. I was teetering. I mean, what's interesting to me is that some people, going back to last April, it kind of all started for me with the anger with the Giants and this regime. Started when when Wink Martindale left the building. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I was a big Wink guy, and I said, you can't bring Daniel Jones back for another year. You have to draft a quarterback, and you have to see what the defense looks like. Because I think Wink had them playing well above their skill level with certain positions. So they hire Shane Bowen. They don't draft a quarterback. And I said, if these guys go like 6-11 or they don't have a good year, they should be fired. And I will be rooting for their jobs to be on the line. And I got laughed at for that. But how many months later? What's up to Iman? How many months later?
Iman.
First two games, no good. I went to the third game in Cleveland. I took it week by week. I didn't want to get too excited over the Seattle win or the Cleveland win because I knew the Giants would bounce back to themselves. I was iffy, maybe they should get their quarterback or maybe they should be fired. And then just as the season went on, I said they can't possibly bring these guys back. 3-14, planes flying over the stadium, 100 years for the franchise. And then John Mara, because he didn't want the perception of, oh, well, I'm going to be firing another group of guys in another, how many years. He didn't like that perception. And Diana Rossini and a number of other reporters said that they were surprised that the Giants retained Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. And to this point in the offseason, and of course we'll get into the specifics, I don't think they've done a terrible job in this offseason thus far. Before that, you have to factor in the how many years of losing, the Daniel Jones thing. A number of things have to be factored in. But you have to, in which, again, eventually we'll go into specifics, but you have to come out of this draft with a quarterback, in my opinion, within the first two rounds. Because it's great you signed Russell Wilson. It's great you signed Jameis Winston. But if you go 6-11 with Russell Wilson, who's not the same Russell Wilson as he was 5 years ago, your ass deserves to be canned.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that you said. I felt wholeheartedly that these guys should have been getting fired from the Barkley situation, the McKinney situation, Barkley going and winning a Super Bowl, torching us on the ground, just everything in itself. So when these guys were brought back, I was like, oh, wow. And then to hear the things that Mara was saying, he basically brought him back and then shitted on him, right? So, and everything that he said in the little presser was like, why are you bringing these guys back to begin with then, at that particular point? And so it was just, it was crazy, the way that all went down. And so it's still mind blowing to me, but it got to a point where I was like, you know what? They're here. I can't change it. Right. So what are we going to do going forward? So now the conversation shifts to, well, okay, so they're back. More than likely, they're going to spend. They're going to spend a lot of money. Their back is against the wall. There's a pressure to win. They're going to spend like drunken sailors. We talked about that in spaces. We talked about that in chats. We had that. Fast forward to free agency. He spent, but didn't spend crazy. He actually brought in good quality players that I was kind of like, wait, is this same GM? Is this same This is the same guy, right? We spend weeks talking about needs for the team. Corner is a big need for the team. You know, popular names that are coming up. You've got Ward coming up. You've got Carlton Davis's name coming up. Byron Murphy's name coming up. Paulson Adebo's name was brought up. First time I heard Paulson Adebo brought up. I saw Authentic, tweeting about Paulson Adebo and bringing him up, and then his name got a little bit more traction, but probably wasn't very attractive because he was coming off of a leg injury, broke his leg, and so boom, they sign him. Then later on in the evening, a little bit later, I thought he was gone. And I wanted him gone, right? Not because I hate Darius Slayton. I just feel like that production could be replicated. And I thought maybe he would want to just go somewhere else, spread his wings, and try to do something different with a new team, new change of scene, and get away. They re-signed him 3 years, $36 million. Not a bad contract. $12.5 million a year, I believe. Not a bad contract. And he's, to be honest, of the guys that were available, right? And we're talking about Devontae Adams, stuff like that. If you're looking to build for the future or have somebody that's been in your system a little bit, 28 years old, he was the youngest out of the group. Anybody else that was his age was nowhere near the type of caliber of receiver that he was. So you're going to be losing in that area. So if you want to get somebody that's equivalent or better, they're going to be a little bit older, and you're probably going to pay a little bit more. And so then they bring in Chauncey Golston from Dallas. I know Dallas fans are upset about that, but great signing. Could play 3-tech, could play the edge. You can move him around on the line. Showed some really good promise last year. 5.5 sacks with Dallas. Got a lot of playing time due to injuries to Micah and D-Law. Got some playing time, made the most of it. And then the following morning, that night, I was saying, leading up to the draft, leading up to free agency, I want to go after a safety. I like Jason Pinnock. Didn't have an issue with him, but I wanted to get a guy that could play over the top. And I wanted Trayvon Moore. That's the guy I wanted. He was young, probably was going to be a free agent. Would have loved to have them bring him in. Ends up signing with Carolina. And then that name, we talked about Javon Holland. Could they get Javon Holland? We thought maybe he was going to be like $20 million a year, $18 million a year, something like that. You get him for $15 million a year. Following morning, deal gets done. So what are your thoughts? And he had some other good ads, good depth pieces, stuff like that. Overall, how are you liking the additions in free agency to the team that Joe Schoen is at? And if you had to pick one or two of your favorites, which are they?
Yeah, so in chronological order, I remember I went to work the morning of free agency, and I was doing a 4 to 8 shift or something like that. And then I go to sleep, and then my brother wakes me up and he says, Paulson Adebo just signed with the Giants. I said, okay, what are the numbers? And came out to 18 million a year, which, I'm not like the biggest fan of, but at the same time, it's the free agent market. You overpay for a player or two and stuff like that. So I was like, okay. I'm on the same team as you in the past tense and even in the present tense a little bit too. I was not a big fan of re-signing Darius Slayton because sure, he's a good number 2 receiver and this, that, and the third, and the contract isn't bad, but it just, you can do that when you're a good team. The Giants haven't been a good team in a very long time. And I feel like not against Darius Slayton personally, but he's the some of the stench of like the losing culture, the 6
Yeah.
wins. He's a reminder. He's like part of the nightmare. Not that
Mm-hmm.
he's directly the nightmare. So you sign him. I wasn't particularly happy with the Hudson signing at first because I'm like, okay, we're paying how much $1 million to a veteran tackle who's going to be swing. But anyway, I got over it. I see when I wake up for work the following morning, same shift, that they signed Chauncey Golston to play in a couple of different spots. I'm like, okay, all right. He's like a better Jihad Ward, and he doesn't celebrate when the team is down 40. So then I'm literally punching out of my shift, and then I go on my phone. I'm like, Javon Holland to the Giants. That's one out of left field. And I'm in the same line as you, Rob. I didn't have a problem with Jason Pinnock, but there was a ceiling there, right? This guy's a converted corner to safety. He was a 6th round pick, where Javon Holland came out of Oregon in 21. He was a 2nd round pick. He obviously flashed. He's not the Kyle Hamilton type, but you could see that there's talent there. And the way Shane Bowen maneuvers his safeties, hopefully he can do something with it. And the Giants needed some veteran leadership. Paulson Adebo is a part of that. And I'm talking specifically in the secondary. Paulson Adebo is a part of that. You got Jason Pinnock, not Jason Pinnock, Javon Holland, who's a part of that. And obviously, we'll see where Dane Belton molds in. Obviously, Tyler Nubin's going to get a second shot. I thought the defensive line signings were okay. Roy Robertson Harris, and Jeremiah Ledbetter, one guy who's a better pass rusher than run stopper, and vice versa. And they got a solid pass rusher, a backup pass rusher that is, and Victor. I'm not going to pronounce his last name, but the guy
I
from
know who you're talking. Yeah.
and Arizona Cardinals. So overall, and also they got some good receiver depth in Lil Jordan Humphrey and Zach Pascal, which I don't think he's talked about. That's obviously before the quarterback thing, but I'm going to leave it at that. I think up to that point, they did a very nice job structuring the contracts. Again, Slayton, not the biggest fan of that one, but in truth, in reality, he is a good number 2 receiver. There wasn't really that many talented receivers on the market, and the Giants at that point in free agency still had a lot of needs going into the draft, and wide receiver picking one in the first or second round, or maybe even the third, and then hoping they're going to develop to be what Slayton was. It's kind of a tough ask for a team that's in the position that they are.
Agreed. I like the additions in the like just the overall depth, right? Little Jordan Humphrey's big physical guy, 6'4". I think he's like 210 pounds or something like that. Like he's up there as far as his weight. He's like almost 200 pounds, but he's big. He's physical. He's made some plays. He's played with Russ before, obviously in Denver, but he's a big physical presence. Pascal is, again, another big physical guy. I think he's like 6'1", 6'2", a $190, something like that, $180, something like that. And, again, another physical presence who's played with a few different quarterbacks. He's played with Carson Wentz. He's he went to Arizona. He's played with Kyler Murray. So, he's been, when he's got his numbers called, like if he's going down, he needs to fill in for a drive or a game due to an injury. Not a guy that I think that you can get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks out of production out of, but guys that can come in on a pinch for a game or 2 or 3 at the absolute most that can fill in if Neighbors were to go down or if Darius Slayton were to go down, something like that can play those outside roles. The depth piece on the defensive line I like. Ledbetter, I believe, is actually got a lot more double teams that he was able to fight through last year where he did a really good job, gets down the line, really good against the run. Roy Robertson Harris is kind of like a well-rounded guy. He can play to the run. He can pass rush a little bit. He's definitely a guy that can get had a little bit, but I like his mentality. I noticed something that him and that Chauncey Goldston and even the guy that Victor that we got from Arizona, the one thing I heard all of them say is, I don't get blocked by tight ends. Tight ends don't block me. What's one thing that we've talked about with Kayvon Thibodeau? Gets blocked by tight ends. So, and again, I'm not trying to say that these guys are better than Kayvon Thibodeau in any way, shape, or form, but it's that mindset, it's that mentality. So I like the additions there. So we'll fast forward a little bit, right? So now we'll talk about the quarterbacks. And obviously the biggest news, they're in on Matthew Stafford. Reports came out that they were in on trading for Stafford last year at the trade deadline. I'm sure the Rams are really happy that they didn't do that, right? They wouldn't have made it to the divisional round and whatnot. But they were in on trading for Matthew Stafford. And they weren't. So now here comes again. They're in the conversation, trying to trade for him, along with, I believe, the Steelers were involved, the Raiders were involved, those teams were involved. And here's the thing. I don't blame them for getting involved. He's 36. He's still a top 7, top 6 quarterback in this league as of right now. If you want to, those guys don't become available very often. He's a guy that you could probably think is going to play the next 3 to 4 years. And if you feel like your roster is somewhat close, or he's a guy that can really compensate for some lack of other things on your roster. So I don't blame them for going after him, right? Anybody, if they were in the position necessarily with the Giants, or if they had a quarterback that was that they didn't really have a large commitment to, they probably would have been in on it as well. Obviously, that didn't come to par, but we found out later that, they met the trade requirements. They met the contract requirements. They just didn't, pull the trigger. And that was because Stafford didn't want to come here. And I think it was either Mike Garafolo or Pat Leonard that said that he believes that next year's one was included in the trade and probably like a day 2 or day 3. It probably would have been like 34 and, next year's first. So we'll focus on that for a second. When you heard that they were in on Matthew Stafford, I was for it originally. And then after that, if I felt like if they were going to bypass the quarterback in round 1 and kick the bucket, I was a little bit nervous about that, or just kick the bucket in its entirety and not draft one at all. I wasn't really for that. What were your thoughts when you heard that they were in with Stafford?
I was absolutely not a fan of it. The way I saw it is, and obviously we know Miz. Me and me and Adam and Chris Bucco from Twitter, we were literally on a 4-way phone call just talking about the idea. And like the excuse that I was given for Stafford specifically and multiple Giant fans as well is that, there's, he gets us relevant and this, that, and the thing. That you trade for Matt Stafford to win a Super Bowl or to get a deep playoff run going. And the way the Giants are built right now, well, even before the free agency signings and all that, and you can still say even now they're not a Super Bowl team. They can't sit here and if they had Matt Stafford right now, regardless of the trade compensation, stuff like that, they're not going to a Super Bowl. It's just not happening. They're not coached like Sean McVay coaches. They're not talented like the Rams are. They don't have the coaching. And I just found it silly that the Giants were going to sit here and try to, give up whatever that they were going to give up. And, you're interested. I guess you're doing due diligence, but you're also sending out a sign to different people. And maybe it changes on April 24th that you don't like the quarterbacks in this class, that you're starting because if you trade for Stafford, what's the likelihood that you're picking a quarterback at 3? It's not a very high likelihood.
Not likely at all. Not likely at all.
Exactly. So 37, a guy who threw 20 touchdowns last year, which was probably the lowest in a few years for Matt Stafford. And also how much money is that was
I did it already.
Yeah,
I did it already.
Beginning of the show. Yeah, at the beginning of the show, he gave
I
us
did it already, Sal.
his Australian Giants accent. But I just didn't see also the cap ramifications. The Giants have money next year and the following years. How many players are under contract? So I was not a big fan of it. And I also was not a big fan of the Giants being in on the Aaron Rodgers escapade, because me watching the Jets last year, me having a pulse of the Jets fan base, and just everything that went on, I was not a big fan of both of those pursuits, for lack of a better term.
Listen here, mates. I don't like the fact that you guys are pressuring me into talking like this, okay? We're supposed to be friends here, mate. I don't like that you guys are coming into my life trying to tell me what I should and shouldn't do there, mate. It's not cool, mate. Not cool at all there, mate. I don't like it. I don't like it all. Me and Alex here just trying to talk about the Giants, trying to talk about Matthew Stafford, the fact that the Giants were in on him. We're just trying to have regular conversation. And you guys are pressuring me, and I don't like the peer pressure. I don't like it at all there, mate. But no worries. No worries there, mate. No worries. You can continue, my friend.
But that was pretty much it. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the Stafford brigade. Didn't see any real reason for it. It didn't make logical sense. It didn't make financial sense. And the Rodgers thing that followed that, I mean, you obviously wouldn't have to give up a second-round pick to get him, but before that, which was before Devontae Adams signed, I was scared that he was going to pull all his goons of the 2017 Green Bay Packers. So, and that's obviously not in a position you want to be, especially if you're, the New York Giants and, Aaron Rodgers is going to come in, he's going to dictate. And Aaron Rodgers still has not signed with a team. There's literally one suitor out there, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he has not signed with them. So just imagine, we are in April, folks. We are in April, and he has not signed with a team. So as far as those two veteran quarterbacks, I was not a fan of the pursuit of any of those guys.
Yeah, and I think the owner, today, or was the GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I believe it was the owner, said that they're closing in on getting that done. So that looks like it's going to be coming to a head for Pittsburgh, and good for them, right? Getting that done. I also dropped the link, guys, in the chat. If anybody wants to click the link, join in on the conversation, feel free to do so. We'll go ahead and we'll bring you in. And I'm with you, dude. I was not for the Aaron Rodgers. If they brought him in, I'll say this. I wasn't for it and I wasn't against it. If they brought him in, they brought him in. If they didn't, they didn't. I wasn't leaning any other way. And the same thing with Russ. It got to a point where I just really want the reset at that position, at that quarterback position. Go get the young quarterback. And I wanted us to do a trade up. Heck, we could still trade up. It's still a potential possibility. Tennessee still at this particular point in time hasn't really committed to what they're actually going to do. And they're still playing these fuck games and all of this stuff. Right. So I wanted to reset at the quarterback position and get the young talent. And to me, and I don't know if you agree, but I said, leading up that to free agency, that I feel like the moves that they made and the players that they brought in and everything like that is all really like kind of lining up with getting a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract in the building to where you can build the team around some of these players. And you got to stop using that. It belongs to 1T. Well, I say dude a lot, or bro, and he says that too. So, when I see the patent, I'll stop using it. And that's kind of where I was at. And I didn't want to be in a position. And granted, I didn't think that Stafford 100% more than likely takes you out of that quarterback market. But I don't think that Rodgers does, or Russell Wilson does for that matter. And that's where I wanted to go. I wanted, if they were going to bring in one that's not going to take you out of position or out of the mindset that if a quarterback were to fall, you would either take one or keeping you to where you would want to move up and get the quarterback. So now, obviously, fast forward, we're waiting. We're waiting for Rodgers. Nothing. We see that Rodgers goes to the Steelers facility. And now we start bringing in these quarterbacks. Joe Flacco came in for a visit. Jameis Winston came in for a visit. We hosted Russell Wilson, who came in for a visit. Then we make that first signing. Boom. Jameis Winston. And immediately I was excited, right? Because that could mean so many different things. It's like, all right, they're signing Russell Wilson. Maybe they've got a trade lined up potentially. Maybe they're confident that Shador is going to be there, because then right around that time, Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, meets with them. Then we see and hear these reports coming out about the Browns are leaning more Abdul Carter. I saw those come out from Mary Kate Cabot, whatever her name is, who covers the Browns. And then we signed Jameis Winston. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, let's do it. All right, something's going down. I'm excited. But then, you got Jeremy Fowler and all these people saying that doesn't mean that they're out on Russ or out on Rodgers yet. And then, boom, we sign Russell Wilson. So now that we've got Russell Wilson in the building, my opinion hasn't changed as far as me wanting to get a quarterback. I feel like the contracts, they're paying these guys $15 million this season. $15 million. The Colts gave Daniel Jones 14, right? So you got two solid quarterbacks for the same price as what Daniel Jones is going to be making. And with Jones's dead money and these two guys, you're paying that less than what you would have paid if Jones was still on the roster this year. So overall, like, how are you feeling about the quarterback room that was the two guys that were added? And where do you think that has that changed your mindset at all? Not what you'd want, but do you think that changed potentially the direction of, if they were looking at quarterback at 3, that changes their mindset going forward? Or has it changed yours?
It has absolutely not changed my mindset. I'm still on the quarterback train. I would love to. I mean, once this busy path gets past me, once doing a lot of work. I'd like to sit down and actually watch the top two quarterbacks on film. I already know what Jackson Dart gives me. I know that a lot of people don't like him. I personally, I was half and half on him going into the Senior Bowl. Then I was actually at the Senior Bowl and I watched him. I said, two fumbles in a row. Yeah, not really liking this. But anyway, it hasn't changed my mindset. As far as the Giants' mindset, I think it's altering. I can't say which way they're going to go yet because it's going to be a mystery for the next 3 weeks. Hopefully, it doesn't change because I said this to somebody over the phone today. I've repeated it since the Russell Wilson signing. If you go 6-11 with Russell Wilson and you have nothing to show for it in terms of a future like a rookie quarterback, and you could have the best draft ever. You could take Travis Hunter, you could take Gray Zabor, who the hell you want to take, and it could be an A+ draft. But if you don't pick a quarterback behind Russell Wilson, behind Jameis Winston, you win 6 games, you are as good as gone because you're not showing anything for the future. Great draft picks, but what about the future, right? Jameis Winston would probably be the only quarterback you have on the roster because Russell Wilson's a 1-year contract. Nobody gives a shit about Tommy DeVito. So, you picking a quarterback, and I'm not talking fifth round, sixth round. Like I don't, I've never really cared about that, right? When before the Giants signed Russell Wilson, and even when they were experimenting with Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco, I wasn't ruling out, okay, do the, what was it, 2012 or 2014 Washington method, where you took RG3 in round one and took Kirk Cousins in round four. And obviously, in a way, it worked out for them to where maybe in this draft you get a Shador, and then, round four, round three, you take a Will Howard or something like that. But I think their mindset is altering. The one thing I'll say is this, however they phrase it, hopefully again they do get a quarterback, is that I think they've set themselves up decently with this free agency. And I think that they should, we'll see if they do, they should put themselves in a position, because we have assistant GM Brandon Brown from the Eagles, to draft like the Eagles. They constantly draft over guys that are older or they're going to leave. Jalen Carter, he was drafted over guys. Jordan Davis, he was drafted over guys. Landon Dickerson, he was drafted over. And guess what? He's now their starting center, or he's one of the starting offensive linemen. Cam Jurgens, he was drafted over a few guys. So, and you see constantly, obviously, they just won the Super Bowl. They are factoring guys in and out as they get older. And then Nolan Smith is another prime example. Josh Sweat, they just let go. They signed Azeez Ojulari. So it's a factory over there of good drafts. And the Giants have solid. I'm not going to go great. I'm not going to go terrible. They have solid starters right now on both sides of the football. I think the Giants also admitted with limited offensive signings in terms of splash signings that the quarterback was the main problem last year. And obviously, we'll see how far that scapegoat goes. But they do need to draft like the Philadelphia Eagles because, and it's a good thing, but also you have to do it correctly. Let's just say round one, you take either Travis Hunter or Shador, whatever. You got to go into round two. I think at some point you got to get a linebacker because there was those Bobby Okereke rumors, he doesn't want to be here or he doesn't fit the scheme or whatever that crap was. Got to get a linebacker because the Giants could probably cut him next year. Micah McFadden's in. You don't know what Deontay Johnson's going to look like. You probably need some corner depth. You definitely need some O-line depth because GVR is only on a 1-year contract. You need probably competition for JMS. And, you got to see with Andrew Thomas because he's coming off of a serious injury. And also you need another defensive tackle, which is a huge need outside quarterback. I think that's probably the second most. But overall, I think they need to draft like the Eagles in this draft. It's a very hard concept, but just philosophically and strategically, that shouldn't take the Giants out of in my want, they shouldn't take the Giants out of a QB running. We'll see if it does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that anything that they've done thus far in the quarterback room should take them out of that, right? You're not committing a lot of money to both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And so it gives you that flexibility. Dan Duggan even saying today, that based on with Russell Wilson and his money, that if they were to draft a basically saying, I'm assuming that if they were to draft a quarterback and, Russ is not playing well or whatever, he's tradable, based on the money that he's got. Yeah, they'll take on a little bit of dead money, but he's tradable. And that's something to potentially be looked at, right? So I think for me, and now we'll kind of dive into like the meat and potatoes here, which is I think right now at this particular point in time, everybody and their mother is reporting X, Y, or Z. And every report or tweet or thing or whatever runs. People run with it. And for me, like, as I was getting ready for this, I'm watching a YouTube video and I'm watching it was a content creator and I'm watching him saying, it's basically, why Joe Shane doesn't like Shador Sanders. And the examples that were given was, well, because he was trying to get Matthew Stafford. Well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't try to get Matthew Stafford unless it was somebody that has an established quarterback room already? If you have an established quarterback, you're going to try to get Matthew Stafford. Or if you have a quarterback that you still believe in, that you want to prove, like the Colts, right? They still believe in Anthony Richardson. They want to make it work. They brought him in, right? The Vikings, they've got J.J. McCarthy that they just drafted. They want to go ahead and they want to give J.J. the opportunity to succeed there. Who wouldn't be in on Matthew Stafford? So if that's the basis, that's the baseline of you wanting to do that, I don't agree with that. Now, to something else that you said is you need to sell something to ownership, that you've got a plan in place. And I'm sorry, Jalen Milroe doesn't fit that bill. Jalen Milroe, to me, doesn't strike that John Mara is going to be, wow, yeah, I believe in that, because he's a project, right? He's a project player. Even guys like Quentin Ewers, who's played some good football in college, that's like, I mean, every player is a project, but that's a guy that's not going to come in and like start day one. You're going to have to work with that player. You're going to have to work with him, right? The way that you, I think, sell is either you're going to have to get Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, and I would argue maybe like a Jackson Dart to give you some type of saying, hey, wow. And I think that the Jackson Dart thing with the Giants would be because of Eli and him going to Missouri, and Ole Miss and whatnot, and, and knowing him and stuff like that factor would probably maybe hold some weight in the building potentially, but not much. I don't know if it would be the same. And so, like, you have to do that. I know people want, they want to do exactly what we did last year. And I don't get why the Giants and the fans, we can never do things the proper way, which is getting the quarterback. Everybody is so afraid of taking a swing on the quarterback to the point where I'm hearing things now like, wow, the Giants, they really need a solid number 2 receiver. We just paid one. We just paid Slayton. We have a number 2 wide receiver. So you want to have Travis Hunter. And again, I'm not trying to say that Slayton is better or as good as Hunter, but you're investing money into Darius Slayton. If they didn't pay Darius Slayton, I can understand that argument all day long, that the Giants need a number 2 wide receiver. But they're investing cap space into that player to be the number 2 wide receiver. I'm not paying a guy $36 million to be the 3rd or 4th receiver on the roster. I'm not. That's ludicrous. Who does that? Who does that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think people are just drawing up all of these conclusions based on all of this stuff, because I think now when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, people are just, oh, I've got Russell Wilson, I've got Jameis Winston, I'm content now. I'm content. And I'm sorry, but you need to close the gap. You need to close the gap. And I'll be very honest with you, Alex, and tell me if you agree with me. If you have a good draft, I mean a good draft, you go and you get your quarterback at 3. You get a Derek Harmon. You get a Darius Alexander. Walter Nolan falls at 34, and you get Walter Nolan. You get a solid, if you want to add a solid offensive lineman, whether that's, Ursery out of Minnesota or Belton out of South Carolina. You want to get a good rotational offensive lineman with some versatility. Or, hey, you want to take a swing, right? You got questions about Tay Banks? Grab BMO at 65 out of Notre Dame. You got Darian Porter that you could grab, right? If you want to get yourself some depth based on who's on the board, right? If you have a solid draft and you get your quarterback and you've got Russell Wilson and you've got Jameis Winston, at that particular point, you could say you've begun the process of closing the gap. You've begun that process. I would say that you have more promising, other than and at that point, you've got the rookie quarterback on the roster. You could say that you've got a better roster than the team that just came in second in the division in the Washington Commanders. Overall, you've got higher upside players that you've got there on your roster. If you do something like that, where now you can compete, maybe you can split with the Commanders. The Dallas Cowboys, they may be taking a step back. You might be able to split with them. Can you be competitive against the Eagles? I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but can you be competitive? Can you make it a compelling argument for you being in that football game? Weekend, those two games, those two matchups. Am I crazy for thinking that if they have a really good draft and you get your quarterback and you've got Russell Wilson, and if Brian Dable somehow figures out how to make the offense work with Russell and start calling good plays, that you can't say the process of closing the gap has begun?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did a nice job last draft. I can't really fault them except for the quarterback, which is a beating a dead horse argument. I was a quarterback guy. I will say I was disappointed with Tyler Nubin. I thought a lot of Giant fans and a lot of people who watched film kind of like overemphasized what he did on the team, like with all the small victories and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's great. He had 6 interceptions in his last year at Minnesota. Where was that ball hawk mentality? Was that on the defensive coordinator? Is that on Tyler Nubin? I love the Drew Phillips pick to this point. I mean, I was questionable of him in the draft because he couldn't tackle to save a life. And he's done a very nice job. Had an interception to end the year. Tyrone Tracy was a great pick. It's definitely working out for us right now, and also I like the improvement of Cordell Flott. It kind of bolsters our depth in that secondary a little bit. Not that he should be a starter, but I think the last year's draft, despite the bad year that the Giants had, not to have these silver linings in a 3-14 season, I thought the draft went well. I think the Giants, to really get up there with the rest of the division, they have to be really good in the trenches. It sounds like an old timer argument, but I look at a team like the top of the division. Start with Eagles. I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. They drafted Landon Dickerson. They drafted Cam Jurgens. Jordan Mailata was a unicorn from Australian rugby, right? You have those guys. I mean, they drafted Lane Johnson about 10 plus years ago. They're still filtering guys in and out. On the
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball, I mean, they had the best defense in the NFL, one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, all those different guys. I mean, I think their trenches are a little overhyped, but they still rule the top of the division. The Commanders, I think their O line played solid, but I would not say that they're compared to the level of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I wouldn't say for the Cowboys either. The Cowboys are losing pieces. Micah Parsons, obviously he's a generational player. They re-signed Odigizua, but DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. There's going to be some pieces that just fall off, and also they have a new head coach who I don't have the utmost confidence in. The Giants, if they have a really good draft, and again, I emphasize the trenches because look at it this way. Let's just say the Giants take a quarterback at 3, or they take a quarterback at 34, however you want to prize it. You have 5 picks within the first 4 rounds. Those could be impact players. Unfortunately, this is a draft. Jim Nagy, former Senior Bowl director, said it, and he's the general manager at Oklahoma now. He said that there's maybe 10 players in this draft that are top 10 worthy, and everyone else is just a second and a third round pick, but they obviously have to be chunked up because there's 32 picks in the first round. So, in that regard, the Giants have to take this trenches very seriously. Obviously, one O lineman at least, one D lineman. And again, build like the Eagles, as I mentioned before. Obviously, the quarterback is there. You have to get it within the first 2 rounds. Probably the first round is your best bet because you don't want to, how many second round quarterbacks other than Jalen Hurts have worked out in the last 5 years? And maybe even 6, 7. I can't count many. But again, it just goes in the simple theme. If you draft like the Eagles, or at least draft maybe about 50%, 45% like the Eagles philosophically and strategically, you don't have to, I would say clone Lane Johnson or clone Landon Dickerson. That'd be great, but obviously it's not going to happen. If you strategically and philosophically draft like them and not try to draft like, obviously Buffalo has good drafts, but I feel like the Eagles, they've been to the Super Bowl how many times in the last few years? There's a strategic difference and philosophical difference. So they attack the trenches. The Giants need to attack the trenches. The Giants need to attack a quarterback, and they need to attack positions where they know guys are going to leave sooner or later. Linebacker, as I mentioned before, and that's pretty much the formula they have to go by this draft. And if they do, and they pick a quarterback, I'm okay with waiting another year and saying, okay, you need to go into 2026. This is the contract year. You guys need to start at least being competitive, winning football games.
Yeah, and look, I hope that they just make they make the moves that are important to make. I agree. The trenches. I mean, when you look at it, right? Look, they've done a good job of as far as setting themselves up to where they literally can just go BPA, every step of the way. But you have areas that you would need to still try to get. Like you still need to get that 3 tech. You still need to get your future quarterback. Like with all due respect to people around here, like and I'll say this. For the people that want to go ahead and draft Hunter and pass on Sanders or draft Carter and pass on Sanders and would be okay with that. And you're saying, well, you can go and get the quarterback at 34, right? Like you're saying. At any particular point in time, let's just say Cam goes 1, Hunter goes 2, we take Travis at 3. Now where's Sanders going to go? He can go to the Jets. He can go to the Raiders. He can go to the Saints, right? If somehow he gets past the Saints, he could drop. But what is stopping a team like if he starts dropping into the teams, what's stopping a team like Pittsburgh from moving up? What's stopping a team like the Rams, who really have a roster that's ready to go? They lost Cup, but they brought in Adams. What's stopping them from maybe making a play and saying, hey, you know what? We got Stafford. Let's go secure our guy of the future. And let's go up and we can take a swing on a quarterback. Let him sit behind Matthew Stafford. We've got already a roster full of young talent ready to go. If we win a Super Bowl in the next year, right? Cool. If not, we've got a guy that's getting ready to take over, right? Say one of those teams that I mentioned earlier, say the Raiders. They take him at 6. Now Jackson Dart, where does he go? He'd go to Pittsburgh at 21. You could have the Browns trade back in to the first round to take Jackson Dart.
The Saints can do that.
The Saints could do it, right? So now what are you going to do? Are you going to take Milroe at 34? Well, if people are going to make the argument that you don't want to reach for a quarterback at 3, you're just doing that in the second round. You're reaching for – because Milroe's not a pick 34. He's not a second-round pick. He's a third-round quarterback. That's what he is. So is yours, third-round guys. So you're gonna reach for a quarterback then at that particular point, and then what? So now at this point, and this was something that Brian Dable said today. I don't know if I'm sure you heard it today, but reports came out that they wanted to grab Neighbors and they wanted to trade back in to get Penix. They thought he was going to drop. Maybe he would have fell to the second. Well, that went over like a fart in church, didn't it? Didn't it, Joey? Right? That went over like a fart in church. So then you hear Dable today, you got to identify if you want the quarterback or not, and you can't, if they're there, you gotta pull the trigger, basically. Like,
Can't dance around it.
you can't dance around. Exactly. Like, it was basically him saying, like, you can't assume, you don't know how the board is going to fall, and you can't assume that player is going to be there when you want to take that player, or that they're just going to fall to you, and you're going to be able to swoop back in. People are asking the Giants to do the same thing they did last year. And Malik Neighbors, a great player. Travis Hunter, great player. Abdul Carter, great player. If you don't have a quarterback, what are they doing for your future with how great Malik Neighbors is? I know he's only a rookie, but for as great as he is, we only won 3 games. We only won 3 games with Malik Neighbors. I mean, there's great players all around the league that are on football teams, right? Prior to Sean Payton getting there, Patrick Surtain was a great corner. How many games were the Broncos winning? Were they winning? Were they competing in their division? Were they making it to the playoffs? It wasn't until Sean Payton got there and they drafted a quarterback, they finally made it to the playoffs. I mean, these other positions are so important, but the quarterback position is the most important. It is the most important position on the football field. So real quick, we got Miz in the building. What's up, Miz? My man Tone. What's going on, Tone? How are you? Guys, I dropped the link in the chat. If anybody wants to jump in, feel free to go ahead and click the link. I'll bring you guys up. And whatnot. But I mean, that's where I'm at, Alex. That's where I'm at. And I'll be honest, dude, if they pass on Shedeur Sanders at 3 and he's sitting there, I don't want them to take quarterback. I don't want it. I don't want them to draft one. I don't want them to draft one. Yeah, you can do it over your phone. You just got to click the link, and then if you have an iPhone, it'll ask you if you want to choose Chrome or Safari or whatever.
Yeah, should work.
It should work. It'll use your camera and your mic on your phone. But if they pass on Shedeur 3, dude, I don't want them to draft a quarterback. I don't want them to do it at all. And I know that's crazy, but it's like at that point, dude, like I don't want no parts of it.
Yeah, I mean,
no, it'll open up on your web browser, Tone.
Yeah, it should open up in your web browser. I mean, you're right, Rob. I mean, let's just say they do pass on Shedeur Sanders, and another team takes them. Is a second round quarterback really saving your job if you go 6th and 11th with Russell Wilson? Is Dylan Gabriel really saving your job? You put him in at the end of the season. Is that saving your job? Is taking a Quinn Ewers, a Will Howard? I mean, there's great developmental quarterbacks in this class, but it's again for the Giants' position that they are in. Right, you got a Russell Wilson, you got a Jameis Winston. You have an all right, talented team, and you got 1 year left on your contract. Right? Are those guys really saving your job? Last year, a Penix obviously would have been great. But if you're not, again, comes to the central point. If you're not sitting here, you take Sanders at 3, and you're showing the fans, look, if our season goes awry, we have something you guys can look forward to for the future. We have that. They didn't do that last year. They didn't even do that in the backup quarterback room. I said, look, get Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was getting paid $1 million, and Drew Lock was getting paid $5 million. And we didn't see Drew Lock until, a week or 2 in, because Tommy DeVito was elected to start over him because of an incentives budge. So the Giants, as much as we talk about they need to have a great draft, this, that, and the third, need to pick a quarterback, they need a backup plan and a salvage plan to save their jobs and do all that good stuff.
Yo, do I gotta mute myself? Do I need headphones?
If you want headphones, or you can mute it. It picks up your mic that's on the phone. It's up to you.
Okay, but you guys don't hear yourself, right? It's not like it's creating an echo.
No,
I don't hear myself.
Alex, what's going on? Rob, what's going on, man? My bad jumping in late on you guys and just interrupting y'all, man. What's going on?
It's good, baby. It was good. Chilling, man. No, we're just so basically we just kind of talked about the off season thus far. Kind of the free agents that we brought in. talked about, how they address the quarterback position, what that would mean, for the draft. And now obviously, Tony, I mean, you know what the deal is. Now you got all of these people now that are, oh my God, do we need to take a swing at the quarterback now? We don't need to. We could draft Hunter, or we could draft Carter. We can punt on next year, or we could take another developmental guy. And
yeah,
it's
I don't understand why it's always almost right before the draft starts where you start getting this flood of people that don't want to touch quarterback. They always want the best guy, the most flashiest guy on the board, and it's enough already, man. It's been how many years this has been, right? 6 years since we drafted Daniel Jones that we haven't drafted a quarterback, and I know this is the same thing that probably everybody in who's listening to this YouTube already probably heard from Rob or from Alex, but dude, it's enough, man. Like, we need to draft a quarterback. It just needs to happen. And again, like, listen, I'm okay with the fact that if like Shador is not there and Cam Ward is not there, don't force a quarterback, right? Don't force a quarterback at 3. That's when you should absolutely take the best available or trade down. But we just need to draft a quarterback at the right time, right? So if it's Cam Ward or Shador that are there at 3, or if we move up to 1, obviously that's moving up to get a quarterback. But take it already, because it's enough, man. We need to develop somebody from our own damn organization. And I just don't understand what's the fear on everybody, man. It's so sad that Giants fans, like, they just don't want to take a shot, and I don't know what it is, man. It's like it's not my job. I don't give a shit if Dable gets fired or Shane gets fired. Like, what I want to see is the attempt to try to be great, and you can't do that unless you take. The only way this organization is going to be great, like, again, Chiefs were a good organization before Mahomes, right? Because Andy Reid was taking them to the playoffs consistently and stuff like that. But the Chiefs were nobody. Like, the Chiefs weren't an organization anybody cared about until Mahomes got there, man. And Mahomes wasn't this can't miss prospect neither. You know what I'm saying? Brady wasn't this can't miss prospect neither. So it's just like, dude, I get it. This is not the strongest quarterback ever, but you still got to take a chance, man. And if one of these 2 guys end up being a bust, who cares, bro? We just draft another quarterback.
Yeah. And, Sal mentioned this, like he kind of hinted at this today, or made this point today, in the space. It's like, so you pass on Shador, you take Travis, we don't win a lot of games. You take a swing on a guy like a Milroe or a Ewers. Those guys, a new regime comes in, they could be like a stop filler for a year, and then they just, like, they move on. And at that point, it was a wasted pick. Like, if there was somebody that was there at 34 or 65, we'll just use 65 for the sake of the argument, right?
That would be 3rd round, right?
Yeah, it's 3rd round. Pick 65, that's 3rd round, right? And there's an impactful player right there. Let's just say it's a lineman, right? Ursary, a guy that gives you off tackle and guard flexibility. Belton, another offensive lineman. Maybe it's another defensive lineman. Maybe it's a corner like a BMO from Notre Dame or something like that. Banks doesn't work out or something or whatever, like, and you went ahead and you passed on that. And then now they moved on from that quarterback that you took at 65, but the player you left on the board is a good player in this league. Right? Is it maybe not top 5 or top 10,
right?
But a really good contributing player, and you passed on him, and now the guy that you took with that new regime comes in. I get it. New regime is going to come in. They're going to make their changes. They're going to do all that. But I would be upset. Like, then what was the point? Like, what was the point of that? Because a guy like Shador, you take a quarterback at 3, that's something that when you're looking to get that new regime in, like, and we talked about this like a little bit yesterday in the space, like that's advertisement. That's a meal ticket for drawing in coaches to want to coach, right? Like when you got Caleb, and I'm not trying to say they're the same prospect, but Caleb was an attraction for coaches to want to go there, to want to coach him, to want to make that work.
That's probably one of the main reasons why that Detroit offensive coordinator decided to go to Chicago. It was
100%.
He saw all the talent that he could have and at his hand. Look what he did with Jared Goff. Not saying Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. I think Jared Goff is definitely fine enough to win your Super Bowl with the right defense and the right surrounding cast around him. But Caleb is the type of guy that doesn't need all that around him to win your Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? And I agree with
100%.
that. The only pushback, and it's not even, I don't even want to consider it a pushback, is if there's no quarterback available at 3 that's deemed to be there, you
That's
eventually
different.
gotta go get a quarterback, right? And let's also not down, like, again, even Milton, like, even these guys, I would not be mad if they pick these guys up, type of guys, as long as within reason, right? Because let's not forget, like, that before Daniels came into this division was run by, Dak, who's not a first rounder, and the Super Bowl champion Hurts, who's not a first rounder, right? I think Dak is a second rounder or a third rounder, and Hurts is a second rounder also. So, like, it's very unlikely. I'm not saying that this is a norm or anything like that, but you could find, your second rounder also in this division that could dominate this division as well, or at least be a top 12 quarterback, which seems like Dak is a top 12 quarterback, and Hurts, you can make the argument that Hurts entering top 7 quarterback, and Daniels is entering that top 12 quarterback conversation too, if he has another good season. So it all depends, right? To me, it's like, if our quarterback is not there at 2, I mean, at the 3, I wouldn't mind if they take a swing at quarterback in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you got to take. I know Rob was like, well, actually, no. Rob said if they pass on Sanders, he doesn't want them taking quarterback at all.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, there are guys in this draft. Like, let's just say Sanders is not there, Cam Ward's not there. There's guys in this draft. Would I like it? No, because it all resorts back to winning a meaningless game against the Indianapolis Colts. But there's Will Howard. Like, I don't, at least my opinion, maybe my short-term memory loss, that is. I don't remember there being like this many talented developmental quarterbacks, not first
Right.
rounders, not last year. Like, you have Ewers, who has upside. You have Will Howard, who has upside. Gabriel has some upside. The list goes on, and obviously you get in the later rounds and stuff like that. I know people are hyping up the Louisville quarterback now because he's a much older guy. But I mean, let's just say, yeah, Sanders isn't there. You got to take your swing on somebody.
Yeah,
Because, again,
absolutely, Alex. And I'm gonna say this, and to this day, still, I've been so disconnected with draft stuff. I want no part of it, because I got so amped up with the quarterback stuff last year. Started doing my research, starting checking this college film on these guys. I'm absolutely not doing that. Even Shador and Cam Ward, like, until somebody is drafted in the Giants, I don't care if it's one of those 2 guys or any of the other guys. I'm not watching no film on no quarterback or any prospect. I'm only putting on the tape on once these guys get drafted to the Giants, and that's when I'll start, like, looking at these guys and be like, all right, I'll even, like, tweet out, give my own prediction on these guys. I did it last year somewhat with the guys that we drafted. And I think I'm gonna play that same game this time, because it just gets tiring to watch. And I shout out to everybody who does that, man. Watches, like, tapes on hundreds of people. We got our own boys doing that. That shit is, you have to, 1, love that. I'm not in love with the college game, and 2, dude, like, your heart gets broken so many times once you're studying college guys and they don't get picked by the team that you want. So it sucks.
And the thing too, like, Tone, to like what you were saying before, like when you bring up, you brought up Dak Prescott, you brought up Jalen Hurts and stuff like that. I think that those situations are a little bit unique, right? Because I think Dak was taken in like the 3rd or the 4th round or something like that. But they had Tony Romo. Granted, Tony was dealing with some injuries, but they had a guy, and they took a swing on a guy like Dak Prescott. Because when you have a guy, a franchise quarterback like that, like, you could take a swing, and it ended up working out for him with the Eagles, right? They took a chance on Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, but you had Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz that was coming off of an MVP caliber season, obviously got hurt, tore his ACL or MCL, whichever it was. They ended up going to the Super Bowl and stuff like that or whatever, and he was backing up, Nick Foles and stuff like that. So, and I don't think that they thought, that Wentz wouldn't continue to progress. And eventually, maybe when it got time to where maybe Wentz's contract was up, or maybe he suffered another injury, they could have maybe went to Jalen Hurts, and it just got to a point
Point
where
is, the thing is that they already had their guy in place.
exactly. Whereas right now, if
We
you
don't
go
have
and
that.
if they pass on the quarterback and they go into the round 2 where they go into round 3, that quarterback they're hoping is their franchise guy. And again, Russell Wilson, he's a 1-year stopgap. He's not a guy that you've had. It's not like Eli Manning that's been on your organization for 10 plus years, that won a couple of Super Bowls, and
No,
like, hey, you know
that's
what?
a great point. I didn't think about that. The guy, whoever we draft in this draft at quarterback position, no matter what
It's going to be
round
the
it is,
future.
he is gonna be anointed as the next guy. Yeah,
Exactly. But 100%. And to me, if you're going to do that, and again, there's no way to know, right? Because look, Cam could be a bust, Shador could be a bust, Dark could be a bust. You don't know. It's a crapshoot, really, with any player, right? Travis can be getting all this hype, and he could come into the league and just flop, and you're like, wow, I didn't think that would be the case. Like, nothing I saw would have given me that indication. But I would rather take my chance with the quarterbacks with a better prospect overall. And if it fails, it fails, versus saying, you passed on the best prospect that you could have gotten. And when I say the best, I'm not saying like Shador is the best, but when you look at those two compared to Dart and compared to Milroe and Ewers and Howard and McCord, like, they're definitely in their own class by themselves. I would rather take my shot there versus saying, hey, you know what, I'll take a high positional player and hope that these second tier guys, maybe that one of them hits. And then if it doesn't, it's like, if I still feel like you're half-assing the situation. If you're going to take a swing, take a full swing. Because if it fails, I can't blame you for that, because you took the second best quarterback in the draft and he fell to you. And it didn't work out for whatever reason. Coaching, he just wasn't good, whatever it is. If it didn't work, it didn't work. That's my mindset on it. But if he's not there, if these guys go and they're not there, absolutely. You know what? You got to take a swing at something if they're not there. But if they just pass,
yeah.
I don't think I want to do it.
Dude, like, the Giants are such in a freaking weird position, man. Like, I feel like I'm the only one on this ship where Dable and Shane are not on the same timelines no matter what happens. Like, Shane, there's a possibility that Shane could come out of this offseason giving himself a unwritten extension, right? Where if Joe Shane does what he needs to do in this draft, he should earn another year. That doesn't mean that Dable earns another year. Dable has to literally play the season, and based on the season results, that's going to determine whether he gets to keep his job or not. I don't think Dable could survive another 3-win season or 4-win season just because he has Shador in the bench, right? So even if we do draft Shador, Dable has to try to win now, which bothers me because Dable hasn't been the best at developing players. And regardless of who we draft this season, I'm very curious of seeing we draft Shador. What I'm going into next season is thinking, how are the players from last year, the Andrew Phillips, the Tyler Nubins, how are those guys going to look in their second year of a system where we haven't seen the Theos, we haven't seen Dable really develop players, or there's nobody in the season. Even let's say put Banks on that, put Tibbs on that. Where's Neal going to be? I'm very curious at what we have right now in the roster. And my thing is, like, I don't know if Dable is going to rely a lot on this draft class regardless. So it's going to be really interesting, man. I don't know what's going to happen with the Giants. I think that even if we draft Shador, we probably won't even see Shador based on just like where Dable is right now. And that's scary too. Like, is Dable influencing Joe Shane right now to, hey, get me a player that's going to allow me to win right now? And that would be most likely Carter or Hunter,
And it's funny, we had this, and I'll bring this up to you guys. I'll let you guys chime in on it. We talked about it today. Is some of the comments that were made by Brian Dable. He wasn't asked about this player. he specifically brought up Michael Penix today. Unprompted. He specifically brought him up and brought that situation. And then you had those reports that came out some weeks ago where it was they thought that they could trade back in and they could get him, and obviously he goes 8 and whatever. And so to me, and then I go back and I listen to Hard Knocks, and when he goes into the office and he sits on the couch and he goes, "So we're rolling out there with the same quarterback room," and then he's sitting on the couch with his suit, and Joe Shane says, if we can't get the quarterback, we're gonna take the weapon and we're rolling with Daniel. And he's looking over there and he's
that face. He's
like, yeah, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, like yeah, all right. I guess like I got no other. Like I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm not gonna say anything, while these two owners are in the room. But yeah, sure. So to me, and then you hear in the Dan Duggan and that Joe Shane, that Brian Dable is going to be very involved in the quarterback search, in the quarterback process this offseason. So it makes me wonder, was Joe not really fully on board and committed to going quarterback last year? And Brian Dable was the one saying, hey, we need to get a quarterback. Like we need to get it. And then so they don't. Maybe Joe goes to Brian and say, listen, he's going to fall. We'll trade back up and we'll get him. But Neighbors, Penix, he was probably thinking like some of the people in his fan base. We can get him. He's going to fall. Look at this mock draft. Look at this mock draft. Look at these guys. Our analysts think he's going to fall. And listen, nobody thought he was going to go 8. Everybody thought Atlanta was going to go edge. They were going to go Dallas Turner. I think the logical spot was he was probably going to go 13 to the Raiders. The Raiders might have taken him at 13. But maybe he would have dropped. So, and then that didn't happen. And so, and Brian referenced that today. So I ask you, do you feel that there was a divide last year? And going into this year, it's kind of like Joe saying, you know what, I was wrong last year about getting the weapon and then trading back up for the quarterback. If you say that we need to go quarterback and you identify it, I'm pulling the trigger. Like where Brian Dable is calling the shots.
Yeah, I do believe there was some sort of a disconnect last year. I mean, part of that was like circumstance driven because the Giants won 5 games, 6 games in 2023, and they couldn't go up for Drake May. The Patriots didn't want to trade out. They couldn't go up for Jaden Daniels. Washington obviously was not going to give their pick to the New York Football Giants. But like I saw the charisma, and you probably did too, Rob, on Hard Knocks, where he's in there with Jaden Daniels. He's fascinated. He's fascinated with Jaden Daniels. Oh yeah, we want you here, stuff like that. Drake May, of him doing the draw-ups at the combine interview. He's fascinated by that because May is smart up here. Obviously, we'll see if he, puts the talent together with the New England Patriots. But I'd like to think that Brian Dable, after 2 years of Daniel Jones, did want a quarterback. And just that whole thing by Shane, if proven to be true, is like, oh yeah, we're going to go up and get Penix. Like, and I'm not going to piss on Neighbors because he put up a great season considering the circumstances. But like, you'd probably rather in that situation go Michael Penix and then trade up for a receiver or just take a receiver. Keon Coleman, there's a number of names that were drafted last year. But I do happen to be on the thought train that Brian Dable was more adamant about a quarterback than a guy like Joe Shane.
And dude, I mean, look at it this year. You could have traded for a wide receiver. You had Deebo Samuel that got moved for nothing. Went to the Commanders. DK Metcalf, right? Would you be upset? Granted, depending on how you feel about DK Metcalf, but if they would have taken Michael Penix last year, we didn't have Neighbors, but they would have taken Michael Penix last year, and then they make a trade and they give for DK Metcalf, bring DK Metcalf to the Giants and give him the same contract that the Steelers give him. But you've got Michael Penix on here. Are you mad? Are you upset about that? I'm not. Granted, like
felt better about it, yeah.
yeah, I mean, granted, like you can make the argument as far as where you think DK Metcalf is, or you know, does he meet the value? But you can always get wide receivers. Shit, Stephon Diggs just signed with the fucking Patriots. He just signed. There's wide receivers everywhere that you can potentially get everywhere. And so, I mean, look at this draft. Can you imagine having Michael Penix on that roster last year and you still get the number 3 overall pick and you could draft Travis Hunter? Like, I'd be like, yes, Travis, let's go. 100%. You've got your quarterback. You've got it. Like, they were so wrong. Like, you were trying to build the walls for the house before you put the foundation down. And the foundation is the quarterback. And now your walls are, they're bending and they're leaning and you're trying all of a sudden now to try to stabilize it. And it's about to fall up from under you guys if you only get it right.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they do get it right. But, yeah, just the way they went about that process last year, hearing about it from you, not a huge fan.
So let me ask you.
Sure.
Heart of hearts, right now, what's your gut telling you? What's your gut telling you right now? Give me the top 5. Like, what's top 5? Who's going top 5? What's that order? If you had to make a guess right here, right now, what's that order going to be?
Okay. All right. So number 1, I got Cam Ward. Cam Ward at number 1. Number 2. Ooh. See, it's tough between Hunter and Abdul Carter. See, like, here's the thing. When I'm not thinking mock draft, I'm thinking the Giants are not taking a quarterback. But I don't see the Giants being infatuated with Travis Hunter. I don't see the Giants being infatuated with Abdul Carter. I could very well be wrong. But I'm lining it up right here. Travis Hunter to the Cleveland Browns. Shador to the Giants. Will Campbell to the New England Patriots. And then, let's see, for the Jaguars. Oh, this is interesting. Let me go ahead and say, either Mason Graham or Will Johnson.
So you've got Abdul falling out of the top 5.
Yeah, because like other than the Browns, I don't see. I mean, I could probably swap Hunter and Carter, and like put Hunter with the Jaguars, but other than the Browns, I don't see like a suitor in the top 5.
So as far as when it comes to the Patriots, because I think if he falls, let's just say Abdul Carter goes 2, we take Shador, Travis is there 4. I think the Patriots go Travis Hunter. I mean, they could very, very easily go Travis Hunter, and put him as a wide receiver. He would easily be their wide receiver 1, in that regard, and him opposite of Christian Gonzalez. But to see your point, they need offensive line help as well, so or whatnot. But if Travis goes 2, I don't know. Like, do the Patriots pass on Abdul Carter? Like, dude, crazy shit has happened. I'm not saying you're wrong, because crazy shit happens all the time. But it's like, man, because he's only going. The crazy thing is Abdul Carter's only meeting with the top 4 teams. He's only meeting with the top 4 teams. He's meeting with Tennessee. He's meeting with the Browns. He's meeting with us, and he's meeting with the Patriots. He's not going to visit any other teams. So if any of the teams that drafts him, say he falls out of 5 and who's got 6? The Jets. If he goes to the Jets, he would have never, other than them probably maybe meeting with him at the combine, they didn't have him in for a 30 visit because he's not going. So like, man, like I wonder if, let's just say that happens and they go Will Campbell or Membu for the Patriots. I wonder if a team like Carolina moves up to 5 to take Carter, right? Because they need edge. They need somebody there, right, on the defensive side. I wonder if they move up and take Carter at 5, or something like that. I wonder. Like this is like, it's kind of crazy because it's like you look at the prospects and you're like, man, these prospects are really good. Abdul Carter and everything like that, really, really good. But what if these teams like just go for need? Because it happens all the time. We did. Like we needed a wide receiver, and then we took the need really, which ended up being like top player in the draft at the time or on the board at that time in Neighbors. But wow, it's going to be interesting.
What's even more interesting is that this is the first draft in how many years where every team owns their first round pick.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You're right.
So,
and there's been no trades. And there's been no trades yet. No trades for picks. None.
Draft night, you're going to see a lot of them. Maybe, actually, I don't know if you'll see a lot of them, to be honest. With the way the talent stacks up in this draft, maybe top 10, and then outside of that, I don't see it.
We'll see. We'll see, brother. We'll see. Well, look, we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. Take a minute or two. I want to say thank you to everybody that came through and hung out with us this evening. Thanks to Tone for dropping in. Thanks to Sal, Amon Perry, Miz for coming through in the chat there. Sal came through. Mason came through. Jacob came through. So I appreciate everybody coming through. Alex, where can people find you? What you got lined up? I know you said you're busy right now. You're eventually going to get back into getting back on track. But where can people find you and tell them a little bit about you?
Yeah, so Big Blue in the Bronx is going to be where you find me on Twitter, Be Blue in the Bronx, and of course YouTube. Looking to cook up some Yankee streams for the next few weeks as the season's going. The Yankees are doing really well right now. As far as the Giants go, I'll probably squeeze out maybe a video or two in the next few weeks as we get closer to the draft. Don't want to really go into that clickbaity nonsense, but of course we have to talk about different scenarios. What the Giants will now do at 3, what they need to do just in general during the draft. And we do a lot of great stuff, and we have a special piece of pre-draft content that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks once some dust clears, because when you're a graduating college student, you got to bridge yourself into a career before it's too late. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, listen, you guys, make sure that you guys are following Alex. He's a really good dude. Does a great pod with his brother and a bunch of others. You might see him asking Joe Shane if he's still eating the Uncrustables. I saw that question, talking with Joe Shane. He was able to meet with Joe and at the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, I believe it was, and ask him some questions, right? So they're able to get out there. Sometimes he gets dirty looks from quarterbacks, or, from players, we had that last year. I think was it Spencer Rattler, who was it? Bo Nix. That's right. Bo Nix gave him a little side eye with some questions and stuff like that. I think you asked, people were questioning his attitude or something like that. And he didn't really like that very much, but good old Bo. But Alex does a great job. Make sure you guys follow him and support him. I would greatly appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that came through. I'm going to try to do these lives at least once a week. Obviously right now when it comes to Giant stuff, it's a little bit flatlining, so to speak, because there's no trades. It's all, he said, she said type of deal. Who knows somebody in the building who slept with Mara last night and got the inside scoop, who's texting Joe, while Brian was in line waiting for his Ozempic pills, he spoke with somebody and he slipped up and said, yeah, man, fucking Shador is my guy. I'd take him now. Everybody, it's Lie City. And so it's going crazy right now. So We're going to try to do these at least once a week. I was doing them early. Like I said before, I want to try to continue this with, for my buddy Pez. So I want to continue to try to do this. May he rest in peace and keep this going. It was hard to find the motivation with the season because it was just so bad. And so it was hard to be motivated. But make sure if you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up button. It helps with the algorithm. Make sure you guys share it out. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. It's free. It's free to hit the subscribe. So push it and turn on those bell notifications so that you watching right now, you right there, I see you. Hi, Mom. Tell your mom I said hi. She's walking in the background. You never miss another upload or a live. I'm Arzur B, and that's Alex from Big Blue in the Bronx. We're signing off. Deuces, y'all.